Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Daily Medicine Transmission for May 19th, 2021, and it is our first quarter moon squaring the sun today. Gosh, does it feel like time is like molasses right now? It is so slow, and I'm not complaining. I am enjoying actually this expansion of time and what feels like a dilation in some ways. I'm enjoying it, but wow, it does feel like time is moving very, very slowly. I'm curious what anybody else has to say about that. So welcome back to my subscribers, my supporters. Thank you for being here. You truly are the lifeblood of this channel, and I so appreciate you being here. And if you're new here, welcome. It's great to have you here. And as always, whenever you interact with this content, it does actually have a positive impact. It does get spread to a wider audience when you share, when you like, when you subscribe, and when you comment on the content. So thank you in advance. And BitChute I was having a real hard time getting yesterday's transmission uploaded onto BitChute, so I'm going to try again today. So if that's where you're usually watching things, I will try to get yesterday's up as well as today's. Sometimes it just doesn't process, and I mean, it's not like YouTube. YouTube's got a lot more resources and probably a ton more server space in order to process millions of things. So patience is important. So not only does it feel like time has just dilated to the point where it almost feels like it has stopped in some ways, there's also a considerable amount of activity that's happening, maybe not in the material realm. And maybe that is why time feels like that has dilated to the point where it has stopped, because there is so much happening in the areas that we are not necessarily physically aware of. And I know for me, I feel like not necessarily that I've done battle in my sleep, but I can feel it, and you could probably see it and feel it too, that I'm just like, whoa, like down a couple notches here. And just exhausted the last couple of days, especially with the moon in Leo. And, we talked about this last week. It's only been a week since the last new moon, the Taurus new moon, because we are at our first quarter square, which is a crisis in action. What are we going to do? Because the moon at the last degree of Leo will square the sun at the very last degree of Taurus, and the sun is going to move into Gemini tomorrow. And so in some ways, the consolidation, the confirmation of the very material reality that we're all part of, that is represented by Taurus, is reaching this pinnacle moment here that is really challenging us in terms of how we're going to express ourselves versus how we feel. And how we feel is a transient moment in time, right? The moon is moving quickly through all the signs every month, and so it gives us a full range of emotions throughout the whole archetypal zodiac. But we are going to be challenged today of what we do. Do we present ourselves with full authenticity, full transparency, like the sun shining at its zenith, where there's nothing that can be hidden, right? That last degree of Leo is the unsealed letter. There's nothing that can be hidden. And when we are working individually on a spiritual path, for instance, and we are allowing that energy to rise within us, the Kundalini energy that is part of this Leo archetype, that passion that moves through us, that really can be expressed as unconditional devotion. Are we at that last degree? It really challenges us to share everything that has culminated as a result of the expression of who we are. And it's not meant to be hoarded. It's not meant to be kept. And this is going to be a real challenge with the last degree of Taurus, because for as much as it is in conjunction with the Pleiades, it is about to move into Gemini, which means it's in conjunction with fixed star Alcyon. We're not meant to keep and hold and hoard that which we are passionate and allows us to fully express ourselves. And this is the Virgo archetype, down to its very basic constituent parts. It's being of service, training ourselves, educating ourselves, disciplining ourselves, putting healthy routines into place, being mindful and meticulous about where things are going in our life and our material world in order to really condition ourselves to be the vessel worthy of the unconditional devotion that moves through us when we are creatively expressing ourselves. When we don't move from the 5th to the 6th house consciously and intentionally and with some humility intact and a willingness to share everything that has moved through us in the expression of ourselves. If we don't do that, this is where the 6th house usually kicks our ass and presents opportunities for healing, usually through a crisis of some sort. So it's moving into this Virgo archetype that really humbles us in some ways. And it is, for as much as Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is where Mercury is right now, it's also Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And so you're looking at these two aspects, one masculine, one feminine, one air, one earth, that is ruled by the archetype of the mind and knowledge and the magician, right? It's one thing to harness all of this power as a result of everything that we learn and harnessing our technical skills that is really represented by Gemini, really getting into the competitive spirit and accepting the nature of duality, as a way to learn and to perfect our skill and to really just gather as much information and knowledge as we can, and spanning the spectrum of a dialectical situation. For every thesis, there will always be an antithesis. Anything that you can conceptualize, there will always be its mirror point. But it doesn't end there. And Virgo does represent when we humble ourselves and we condition ourselves and we train ourselves and we give of ourselves to the service of the entire whole. And during the Virgo time, in a growing cycle, this is when the plant really does the work under the surface. It utilizes a strong root system to bring all the minerals up from the soil that are helping the fruit grow at this point, the fruit that bears the seed. And we, in that Virgo time, are like that fruit, and also at the same time accessing the root system in order to pull in from the soil everything that we need in order to grow. And so we're going to feel this transition today, and overnight, the connection to Mercury with the moon in Leo, and as we're going to see, it's also going to be in the quincunx with Pluto. And when we get into the intuitive message today, there is a very, very strong connection to this death and rebirth process and our ability to surrender to that process, because nothing does stay hidden, including the process that we all go through, which is death into transformation. But we have to come into full transparency in order to get the most out of that situation. So when we get to that point, you'll see what I mean in terms of the intensity and the intensity of the message, and also the reinforcement of it with certain, doubling up on certain archetypes, certain numerological connections. It'll make sense. And ultimately, the way that we can really bridge the gap here, really, really meet Saturn where it's at in terms of our evolution and fulfilling it in an organic way as opposed to a transhumanist way, because it could go either way with Saturn. Saturn's just, saying that this is what's happening regardless, and how we interact with that is going to have a big impact on how it transpires and evolves over time. But the way Venus is going to be in a trine to Saturn today, in that degree of telepathy, right? Bridging the gap, rising above the social distinctions and the physical and material aspects of reality, which is going to be a little interesting for Venus, because that's what she rules, that territory of the material and the five senses and our relationships, the communication with each other that Venus in Gemini represents. There is something here about being able to transcend that in order to connect directly to people outside of all of these aspects that define us socially and even physically. And this is going to get a lot of traction and support from Saturn today. That is like, we are evolving. We are bypassing, and not in a negative way. It can be. Absolutely, it can be. But we are, in fact, moving through our delays and our obstacles, utilizing the uniquely human aspects in order to do that. And Venus is allowing us in some ways to tap into the ways we can connect with each other directly and get out of all of the definitions that are imposed upon us through our society. That's the thing about Gemini. It is not necessarily meant to be bogged down with all of the social distinctions, the physical manifestation. It is the realm of the magician. And so there is this ability to rise above all of that, and engage with the logos directly and the realm of the mind and information directly. And so Venus is making that very palpable, right? Making it very much something we value in our life, and applying that to the relationships that we value and being able to connect directly to people. This means coming out of the this or that mentality of, who's the enemy in a situation necessarily, right? Is it one faction or another? If we get stuck in that, then we stay in that loop forever. And the mark of the real magician and the real master in this realm is to be able to move seamlessly and outside of time back and forth in order to understand something. And the sun, before it comes into the last degree today, is in a position of Taurus that does bring this into a material form, that there's no true way to understand anything until we are able to understand both sides of a situation. So in order to understand these things, though, everything needs to come to the surface and be transparent. And that's going to come with some serious difficulty today. So let's look at the chart so that there is some measure of something that we can anchor into here, as always. I hope everyone is doing well, taking very good care of themselves. I feel like there's been a lot that has just happened over the last couple days, and is now finally kind of tapering just a little bit in order for us to integrate it. And this is perfect for a moon in Virgo, because it gives each of us the opportunity to take personal initiative, to utilize our feelings, to address our subconscious when it comes to this being of service and disciplining yourself. Virgo is the path of discipleship. And it's important that we recognize that and what that actually means. And we each get an opportunity with this moon in Virgo for just a few days to acknowledge what that means in relation to all of these other larger aspects that are going on, considering that it's going to be in a direct opposition to Jupiter today at the 0 degrees Virgo and Pisces. And then we have Venus in a trine to Saturn. So let's look here. We also have some fixed star energy as well to address as we get closer and closer to the full moon lunar eclipse on the 26th, and then Mercury goes retrograde next Saturday on the 29th. And we'll go back to Rigel, which was 16 to 17 degrees Gemini. So that'll be more thoroughly addressed in the full moon report, the eclipse report. because all of that stuff is going to be embodied in the second half of this lunar cycle. So here we are today. We are looking at the current transits. We have the moon coming into that last 5 degrees of Leo right now. And so one of the things you can already see this square is coming into view. What is that first quarter square? Like I said, a crisis in action. What are we going to do? We had our new moon that was really about the symbol of hope and peace, right? The white dove over troubled water. We will be, I hesitate to use the term reward because it implies, something that is, some kind of competition or something. But it does suggest that within us, we will find and we will see and we will be able to engage with on some level some symbol that shows us that we are on the right path, right? This is but it has to grow naturally. We are talking about Taurus in a very material way here. So this is our first challenge to this, where the moon in Leo, the very last degree of Leo, is going to challenge whether or not we release, right? We release everything that has been coming up within us, and it's not even an either or. These are just cross purposes with the moon and the sun today in this square. Cross purposes. They're going to meet each other in this square. And, fixed square energy is really intense. And so there's not a lot of mutability necessarily here. These are two very firmly staunch and firm energies that are going to collide with each other. And the last degree of Taurus is a peacock strutting around, right? It is the consummation of everything, including our own, what we've inherited from our ancestors, not just ourselves. That's the thing about Leo. It is kind of just about ourselves at this point and everything we have allowed to move through us as a result of our creative passion and expression. So are we going to release that? Are we going to also hold the representation of everything that we have accumulated and consummated over time? That's not just us, but everything that has come before us. This is going to be an interesting square. Let's just say that. Now, something that's very interesting today is that this moon is going to be in a quincunx to Pluto. And it was already in a quincunx, as we talked about yesterday, to Neptune in Pisces. This energy here of the moon in Leo, 27 degrees Leo, is about the luminescence of the dawn, right? The dawn and the light of the dawn coming back after the dark night, correct? Yes, that is correct. Right? It's an exaltation, right? It's illumination. And we meet every day with a pure heart and a clear mind. That's really, as we're getting to the end of Leo, we're getting close to Regulus. We're getting close to, like I said, this full expression of who we are that is really meant to be shared with everybody, not just hoarded. Because when you get caught in that Leo cycle, wow, this is where the narcissism and the egocentric focus on me, I'm the center of the universe type of thing. The sun is not the center of the universe. It is just the center of our solar system, which is really important. Just like the sun and our creative expression is at the center of us and our journey, but it's not the end. And it's certainly not the center of the universe. But this challenge of new opportunities at the threshold of a new cycle. And in quincunx, you can already feel like in quincunx to Pluto, which is about in Capricorn, this degree that is having us scale the mountain, right? Follow the pathway that has been followed for generations before us. Oh, that sounds familiar, right? This square with a late Taurus. These generations before us that have actually tread the path up the mountain. Well, Pluto is going back, and it's just going to be whatever hasn't been destroyed already is going to be going back and being destroyed. And this is a big theme for today. This death concept and the archetype of death is really strong today. And this is not to raise concern necessarily. You have to think about it archetypally, but everything that exists archetypally within us and our microcosm will be available for us to engage with in the macro, in the external world. So this will, in some ways, be expressed in the world outside of us. Now, this quincunx, again, what's the quincunx? It's the square peg in the round hole. It does not fit. It requires us to adjust ourselves in some way. We have this massive energy of Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, where we're doing the work internally, going back over everything that has been, essentially destroyed over the last couple of months since March 2020, going back over it again with an even more a stronger lens, right? Oh my God, the cats are going nuts today. They're all over the place. The quincunx here is while we, right, emotionally and personally are feeling this drive and this desire really to meet the threshold of a new cycle, to be illuminated by it, and to have this clear mind and this pure heart that we are, kind of like floating in that feeling still, right? Where the dawn is coming and the sky is starting to lighten up, and it's all these beautiful colors at dawn, and the birds start chirping, and we feel really pure. We feel really clear. We're ready to move forward. Well, that's great. But this quincunx is like, okay, hold on a minute here. We need to make some adjustments, because what else is simultaneously happening in this connection here is that Pluto is like, yeah, I'm glad that you're feeling that way. But by the way, we have to still work on the transformation process that requires internal destruction, right? Internal destruction. And this is really the causal factor that is going to be moving through a lot of this message today. So this is happening any moment now. Look at this, 10:24 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, and within the next hour, this is really going to set the tone for the day, really. And then we have the first quarter square, right? 29 to 29, there we go, 30 degrees, right? Right at that last degree mark, 3:15. So we can even look at it precisely if we want. And why not? Yeah, there we go. That's a little bit better. So that last degree, that's square. So are we going to share, right? And it's not about are we going to share or do this. It's not an opposition. Oh, there'll be an opposition. Don't you worry. That Moon and Jupiter opposition is coming right after it. These are cross purposes. There's no resolving squares, especially something like this that relates directly to the human archetypal experience of the sun and the moon, right? The expression and the feeling, right? The combustion and release, and the means in which the space within us that allows for creation to happen. The moon, the high priestess, right? This is the square today. The best thing to do is just lean right into it, and we have accumulated everything from not only our own lifetime, but our ancestors and previous cycles of karma and the material world. So we are in a moment of consummation, and then we move into this first degree of Gemini tomorrow, which we'll talk way more about later. I'm just showing you right now that these cross purposes here, this square between the sun and the moon is really going to challenge us in terms of what are we going to do, right? The crisis in action, because that new moon was in Taurus. So we are still working with a sense of natural evolution, the material world, the natural rhythm, and the medium that we are embedded in which to grow. But we want to shine, right? We want to shine and we want to share it. So just keep that in mind as we move through the day. And then as we see, like I said, we're going to have this opposition with Jupiter in Pisces, which is its co-rulership of Pisces. Jupiter is expanding on this transcendental space of the collective commingling, right? Everything that ever was, ever will be, that we can experience, the lack of boundaries, the ocean of the ocean of consciousness that we all have access to. Jupiter's just expanding and expanding and expanding. It's advocating. It certainly is benefic and fortunate, and gives us and representative, right? Gives us the resources in some ways to keep expanding on our understanding of what it means to actually live in a collective situation, to be inspired. Well, what is this opposition? Well, the moon is pulling us into Virgo now. So as much as Jupiter's expanding on this space and how important that is, and how much good luck in some ways we're going to have in terms of the lived experience of the collective, right? That Pisces is the collective unconscious and the 12th house, right? And we're going to see there's going to be tension here, because for as much as we want to maybe surrender to this and kind of give ourselves over to Jupiter, because, Jupiter is a great lawyer, great manager, right? Somebody that's managing this whole process. But internally, personally, we have to manage ourselves. And this is where this opposition is really going to showcase itself. And we're going to see in the intuitive message how we are at the heart of things going to really struggle with letting go, and allowing for transparency and accepting it for what it is. And part of this is this degree of 0 degrees Virgo, to the capacity to picture ourselves clearly, and the overall meaning of any life situation, right? This is going to be very, very much about us individually on our path to discipleship, on our path to becoming, to disciplining ourselves and purifying ourselves, right? Vesta is in Virgo, all right? And the moon's going to meet Vesta tomorrow. This is the goddess of the hearth, and the Vestal virgins are her priestesses, because these are the individuals who are not really beholden to anything other than their role as a spiritual conduit. And we need to really take some time to find the fulcrum here with this opposition, because otherwise, and I think there's going to be a splitting apart in some ways, as we're going to see in the intuitive message. So, and then we have Venus that is going to trine Saturn, this air trine right now, the telepathy that bridging physical space and social distinction. I talked about that already. The capacity to transcend the limitations of our material existence. In Gemini, this is the realm of the magician, really, right? The mercurial realm, and Mercury specifically as a messenger and as a guide and a shepherd, right? In so many different cultures, this particular archetype is identified as a shepherd, as a messenger, as a steward of the underworld in Greek mythology. This deity of Hermes, or in Roman mythology, they just stole everything. The character of Mercury itself, right? They just use the actual planets to identify these Greek archetypes. Hermes and Mercury was able to move in and out of the underworld without being trapped there. No other deity or archetype was able to do that. And so was considered a shepherd, was considered a guide into the underworld for souls that may have gotten lost along the way. So this, and Venus being the goddess of love and value and our sensitivity to the material world is, this is not exactly easy for her to represent this, but it does show the value to a certain extent, and where in our material world we can actually transcend in order to have direct connection in the mind to those in our material world. And this, like I said, is getting a lot of traction with Saturn. This air trine with Saturn is showing us it is very well balanced and supportive of this process of evolution that we're going through. This pushing through our obstacles, pushing through the delays, using our mental acuity and our physical discipline and self-discipline, all the things that Aquarius represents, which is the human, right? And in a lot of ways, Aquarius represents the futuristic human, right? The ET, the evolved human, what we can be when we are coherent with the energy that connects us all, which is love, right? Saturn is very, has a lot of boundaries and a lot of structure and is very paternal in that way, even though the earth sign of Capricorn is distinctly feminine. It is about aligning with the unfoldment of the natural process that Capricorn represents. But Saturn is, very much saying this is what we're doing. And there's no getting out of it right now. And so Venus is showing us, right, Venus is very well connected and supported by in this air trine. So, man, I really do feel like that I have done some serious battle, especially last night. Oh, wow. So I'd be curious to see how people are feeling, what's going on for them. You can always comment about things in the comment section, of course, about how things are feeling. It does feel like that things have kind of ramped down just briefly. And it's really because we've gone from this really combustion and release phase, and we're about to go back into the soil and do some really hard work and really be really acknowledge within ourselves the places that we need to shore up in some ways. And this is why this opposition to Jupiter, which is never looking at the discipline, is not ever really thinking about anything but the big picture in Pisces. This is where this tension is going to present itself with this square today. So, just be aware that this is how things are going to unfold. And let's look at the reading, because I think this is going to really show us what to expect. And I was kind of blown away by it as well when I pulled the cards today. So you're going to see that everything in this reading, other than the animal messengers, they're never reversed. Everything is reversed except what sits on the top, which is our conscious awareness, which is the top of our energetic axis of power, which is the Buddha prepares. But everything else, including this axis here, all major arcanas, the Death card reversed, the Hanged Man reversed, the Art of Alchemy reversed. And these are all very chronological. They're not in chronological order, but they are all connected. Number 12, number 13, number 14, number 13. This is the initiation in the Count Saint Germain. Number 14, also reversed. The King of Keys reversed. The Two of Forces reversed. Ah, boy. And the only thing that's upright is this card, the Buddha prepares. So we're gonna look at this now, because this is substantial. Number 1, the Death card. Of course, everybody kind of like flinches at the Death card because it's the only, it's so interesting that as a species, and on all species have self-preservation built in, right? In order to survive and to procreate and to continue life. It's very interesting that, however, that we all as humans push back against death. It is the one thing that is for sure and guaranteed. And it's the one thing that we don't know. We just don't know. We can all speculate. We can all have our intuitions about it. We can even have near-death experiences that give us information that is otherwise not available to us. But the reality is that this is one and the same, something that we will absolutely face, and it's something that we have no definitive knowledge about, which is interesting. So when it's all of these reversals are going to go two different ways here. We're going to all, on some level, have these experiences internally, but with all of the reversals, there's going to be it just feels to me that there's going to be not only a lot of resistance to all of this energy and confusion, but just like a retrograde in astrology, it's an illusion that things are moving backwards based on perspective. And so one of the things about retrogrades is that they get our attention, because when you are seeing something that seems like it's moving backwards, but you know that it isn't, you are paying way more attention to it and acknowledging it and thinking about it. And so all of these reversals too do suggest that there's just going to be a lot of attention paid to these types of energies that are unfolding, and resistance, especially on this horizontal axis of our consciousness, right? What it is that we're interacting with out in the world that's really just an expression of our own internal energetic alignment. But this does really suggest some incredible transformation potential, our ability to surrender to this process, and also to realize that because the South Node is in Sagittarius, we are still in a place where we're, and all the Gemini energy right now is really pointing us to a place of not dissolving and coalescing, which is what alchemy represents, but the ability to separate and to have distinct poles, because you have to start there in order to dissolve and coagulate and bring together something new. There is no alchemy without polarity and duality. Otherwise, there's nothing to bring together. And there's so many overlaps here. So we got the death card. It's reversed, number 13. This is our causal factor. And like I talked about earlier, that this causal factor is really this transformation process. And we are looking at this quincunx with Pluto retrograde, right? I mean, the death card, Pluto retrograde, in this quincunx with the moon in Leo that is ready for the new dawn, is facing the dawn and ready to go and illuminated by all of the darkness. And so there is this, the quincunx here is so much of this, the wild card energy and the square peg in the round hole, and the necessity to adjust ourselves coming into this moment, this causal factor. Like I said, this is really setting the tone for the day, this quincunx, I feels like, because as much as we want to bring this all forward and to share it, we also have to really contend with everything that has come up this far. And this is where I feel like a lot of resistance is going to come in if we don't see this quincunx for what it is and adjust our expectations, adjust our own internal and intuitive nature, or our relationship to this. There's a lot of ways this can go, but this quincunx with Pluto and the Leo moon really setting the tone and is really represented by the death card reversed. Okay, number 13. Now, in the heart of the moment, though, so where does this is leading into the heart of us, right? The heart of what is within us and what we are experiencing outside of us is really reflected in this heart chakra and the middle of this reading. So the Hanged Man is number 12. So we do have this like regression in some ways from the death card, which is 13. We go back because if you think about it in a narrative structure, it is when we surrender that we then move into this process of transformation from what we are releasing. So the Hanged Man is number 12. It's represented by Uranus and also by Neptune, the spirit of sacrifice, and Uranus as like a neutralizing force because it just kind of like wakes everything up. And this is about a turning point. You can see that, everything is turned on its head, and there is this sense of, you see that the individual in this card has got the nails through 1, 2, and 3, and the 4th is hanging from the Ankh, which is really representative of Sirius in the Egyptian cosmology. The Ankh has a lot to do with Sirius and Osiris. I'm going to talk all about this on the presentation for the Mercury retrograde astrology summit. This is all going to be part of what I talk about in terms of the starseed, Orion starseeds. But when it's upright like this, we are acceptance of our fate. And what is fate? It's just a cause and effect relationship. Then the 12th house is that coming back around. Nothing can be hidden. And so we just accept. We accept it consciously and intentionally and know that it's part of our spiritual process and awakening. So when it's reversed, like it is in this reading at the heart of the matter. So we have this causal factor of the death card that is really an inner death, a resistance. And so there's fear and loss, not being able to really adjust ourselves in this process of death and transformation that Pluto represents, especially retrograde, coming into this moment where we are really rejecting this and coming to a standstill and a loss of perspective when the Hanged Man is upright. we still think our head is above water. We still think that despite the fact that we are hanging from the Ankh, that we are somehow in control. And I think at at the heart of things, this is really going to be hard to accept, and we're really going to struggle to accept. And this is, I think, also the opposition with the Virgo moon and that 0 degrees of Virgo and Pisces, right? Because we do have to accept where we are each individually at. And at the same time, also acknowledge that Jupiter is expanding on this space of Neptune, of Pisces, of the 12th house energies, in a way that's giving us kind of like, there's no end, right? We can just keep expanding here, and not take any personal responsibility for that. And this is where I think this is going to be hard. And I can feel, and being tired and almost being like worn out from like, consistently in this combustion phase of expression. In some ways we have no choice but to just release to our own process, which is Virgo, right? If we want to embody the full potential of what we could be. But this is really suggesting at the heart here, there's going to be some real struggle and some pushback against being able to really surrender to the truth. Despite the fact that there is all of this death and transformation energy coming into the moment. Now, at the root of us, here's number 14, the initiation and the Count Saint Germain. This is about our own spiritual alchemy. This is about letting go of what has been, and aligning with the higher vibrational relationships and situations, and stepping into our role as spiritual beings, stepping into our role as stepping into our initiation, right? Count Saint Germain is the ascended master of the violet flame, right? Is that the crown chakra being open, our connection to source from our own physical bodies. And, this does relate to the art of alchemy and the Sagittarian nature, because it is through a collective recognition of this that we are able to, in some ways, make this transition. But when it's reversed like this is really signaling, again, we're holding and resistant to change. We're not letting go of the aspects. Oh man, there's so much of this today. Not letting go of the aspects within us and within us specifically that are keeping us from stepping into this role and this initiation. And we need to confront what it is that's holding us back. And it's all internal, right? It's all internal. Everything outside of us is nothing more than a reflection of what we're all each individually working with. And so, again, we keep trying to fight battles outside of us when it's all within us. And the battles outside of us are going to shift and change when we shift and change inside of us on our own journey. And it's, fighting the battle outside of us. There's a difference here. Being aware and seeing the truth in its full transparency and authenticity, even if it's painful, is not the same as fighting this outer battle. Being able to see things for what they are is essential to how we are, how we each are moving through our own initiations as well and our own transformations. But where we are rooted right now energetically, again, this is all an internalized process, but this does really show that we are, I think, collectively really struggling with stepping into this initiation. And this is really at the root of us today as well, this holding on to old ways and resistance to change. And so it moves up through this process where the hanged man is reversed and there's more resistance, right? But what we do see, this is kind of like our saving grace in some ways, is that, again, number 13 and 14, and then 12, obviously, as where our conscious attention is. And this is really the inner preparation. The Buddha prepares. This is about going within. This is about going within and focusing on your heart, right? Focusing on your heart and being ready to gathering all of your power for when it's time to act. Because right now it's not. I mean, right now it's time to accept. It's time to release. It's time to surrender to what is happening. And our conscious attention and the top of our awareness right now can be about this preparation, going into prayer, going into meditation, really being in the stillness in order to prepare for when it is time for action. And this also allows us to stay still amidst all of upheaval and to also hear our guidance too, as we're going to see with the rest of this reading. So what to expect here with all of this is the art of alchemy, right? Dissolve and coagulate, taking the two purified alchemical opposites and bringing them together in order to create something new. This is about temperance and balance, but it's about the art of alchemy, which is unification, and acknowledging the polarity and then bringing them together in order to create something new. When it's reversed, there's and this card, as much as it represented by Sagittarius, it also is represented by Mercury as the sixth house ruler, right? It's in the process of Virgo. It's in the process of the sixth house where we actually do the works that we are able to eventually come to the art of alchemy. This is the Hermit, right? That's the sixth house, and Virgo is the Hermit. It's the priestesses that commit themselves to discipleship. You have to do this part first before you can actually bring yourself to create something new, to perform this alchemy, right? And so when this card is reversed, again, we can look at it as an internalized process of all of these things, and we can, but it does suggest everything is in this reading is reversed except for the Buddha prepares. And this is showing that what to expect. A splitting apart, a tearing apart, getting into extremes, and having to go into this sixth house Virgo aspect on a personal level in the, with the moon transit to get into these spaces of discipleship and really get into what it is that we need to do on a regular basis in a very material way in order to be the purified vessel of our creative expression of that Kundalini energy moving through us. And so what to expect? I think we are going to expect, I think it is worthy to expect a splitting apart, a tearing apart. We're not unifying. We are, I don't want to say that we are necessarily taking sides, but with all of this Gemini energy, it's really about the fact that the North Node in Gemini is where we're headed. We're not really headed right now into this unification process. We are headed into a realization that polarity and duality are just part of our world right now. And this is where we learn the most. And when we accept that, we have to accept that duality is nothing more than the mirror image of the same thing. We have to accept that first within us before we can even bring those aspects together to create something new. You have to, and that is the role of the magician, right? And the mercurial energy that goes along with Gemini is about realizing this and not becoming emotionally attached. But we really today need to get into the core of who we are, know that nothing is going to remain hidden and what we are going to do in the face of that and what to expect, right? We're expecting that there's going to be a splitting apart and things are going to get more extreme. And that's part of the transformation process as far as I can tell. And the moon going into Virgo is really important right now for each of us to understand how we can use the Gemini energy to actually put ourselves and condition ourselves into a vessel that eventually is able to fulfill this alchemical process. Now, the guidance, of course, as always, is here for us. Now, this is just a reminder. The King of Keys reversed when it comes to our initiation. Material success is eluding us. We are definitely feeling like a king without our crown, right? Lots of effort with little payoff. It's important that we focus. This goes right back to yesterday, too, those two worlds of the material and the spiritual. it's important that we take some time to focus on how our life's purpose, our mission, can complement our 10th house directives or our career. I think that we are still struggling with this too. And this is what is keeping us from stepping into our initiation. Into our higher purpose, because these two aspects are still polarized within us, and that we are still struggling to make sense of our career and 10th house directives and our purpose, our mission, which is the 10th house, right? It is about our contribution to the whole. But we are feeling like a king without a crown. It is knocked off our head, and we need some clarity about how to really how we can come into this initiation process. And I think we do really need to just accept some things that we've lost, accept that success is eluding us and that we need to try something different. Well, what is that difference? The unicorn is coming back out again quite a bit. It's about indulging our imagination, our creativity, our magic, right? That's a very Piscean thing. And this is where Jupiter is. The unicorn also is like the higher octave of Capricorn. So Capricorn is the mountain goat, it's the sea goat, but from a magical perspective, it's the unicorn, right? This is something also very pure, right? This is purified magical creature. It has this, the one horn, so it also represents like the coming together into this singular recognition of where this crown chakra is pointing, right? It's coming from our ability to indulge this side of ourselves. It's not necessarily coming from our careers or our manifestation stuff or bringing, you know what I mean? It's not, those things will follow when we come into this Virgo and 6th house energy in our fullness, because from there, then we are a perfect vessel in order to create with others, in order to be in relationship and association with others. But we are being held back in some way. We're holding ourselves back really because we keep trying to find our success through a material realm, and it's really coming through our spiritual realm first, and then the rest will follow. But I think we're really struggling here with this split on how to do this. So the unicorn is pointing us in that direction. All right, when it comes to the Buddha prepares, this is important that this is at the top of our awareness, that we accept that we are in this period now of doing the work within, being in our stillness, because this is where we get our guidance. And it's important that we still ourselves, we quiet ourselves, that we're not out in the fray necessarily. Not everybody's got their role to play, and some people are meant to be out there, and those people are probably not watching this, right? Those people have a different karma to enact, but this is showing us that being able to stay still within the storm, because nothing is going to be hidden, and full transparency can really shake things up and cause people to resist and to not accept and to, engage with fear. So this is, we're getting guidance, but we can only get it really if we are acknowledging that, and practicing this stillness and this preparation period that the Buddha prepares represents. Being aware of this, practicing this, having a conscious intention around this is going to allow us to connect to our ancestral guides, right? And that is a big part of this square with the sun and the moon, right? Because the 2nd house is really the culmination of our ancestral lineage, our genetics, everything in the material world that is already here for us to engage with. This is very much Taurus in the 2nd house. And so the sun is going to square the moon at this point of culmination of everything that is, of consummation, really, of everything that has come before us and represents the entirety of our material reality. So there are guides, there's ancestral guidance that can be engaged, but it does require that we are still and that we are quiet and that we are in prayer, in meditation in order to hear this, because it's not going to come outside of us, and it's certainly not going to come because we force it into action. Now, speaking of forces, the 2 of forces, the willow, when it's reversed, this goes right into this, right? There's a lot of conflict that's going to be blowing around us. us. It's important that we stay flexible and strong and capable to bend without breaking, to release, to surrender, to know that we are completely supported by everything that has come before us, and that allows us to be firmly rooted and to stay centered, yet adaptable. Again, this is part of being still in the preparation stage, going within. All of these things are enhanced when we acknowledge that there's a lot of wind blowing that could break us if we do not allow ourselves to be flexible. And part of that is having this still core. Part of this having this strong root system that allows us to be adaptable and move, and for parts of ourselves to move around while this core of us in our heart is staying stable and steady. And we release, right? And there's definitely going to be some measure of struggle against this today. And it's up to us to really connect into where our stillness is in order to manage this, because there is going to be more splitting apart, I think, getting into extremes even more as we are all learning and evolving as a result of this energy. So, guys, that's the transmission for today for the first quarter moon. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. I truly appreciate each and every one of you being here. If you're interested in a reading or energy work in order to support your process, you can book through catalystenergies.net. That is in the description box below. I will put in the description box for yesterday and today the place where you can register for the Mercury Retrograde Astrology Summit. That's going to be happening all next week. So you just need to register so that you can get access to all of the presenters and the interviews to really assist with this process in Gemini. This is really important that we understand this, because if we don't, then we get stuck in a loop. We get stuck in a karmic loop, or we get stuck in a loop that we are consistently just we need to have a physical basis in order to manifest from. And so getting stuck in the Gemini archetype without the Virgo nature to be part of it is kind of a trap. So with the moon in Virgo over the next couple of days, we really have a very powerful opportunity to really allow ourselves to get into our discipleship, whatever that means to us, right? Whatever it means to be disciplined and condition ourselves to be at our highest potential is what the Virgo represents. And love and service, it's in opposition to Pisces, which is the collective experience of love, right? It is the giving of ourselves fully and totally, and surrendering to the entire process in order to have it come back around. And then we come into new form. So hope everybody's doing well. I love you. Take very good care of yourselves. Everything you need is in the description box below. So I appreciate you being here. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.